Tennessee Titans fans, we are here today checking out another video. This one from House Call podcast, I believe, grading every NFL team's offseason. And they are just getting to the AFC South as I start this, grading every NFL team's offseason. And the dude in the jersey, that appears to be a Warren Moon Oilers jersey, or maybe it's a Cam Ward Oilers jersey. Who knows? Let's check out this and see what these guys have to say about grades for the AFC South. Let's do it.
Move on to the AFC South. Jacksonville Jaguars. Obviously, the biggest highlight of this team's offseason is the acquisition of Travis Hunter.
I wouldn't give them a bad grade.
2 overall. You gave up a monstrous amount of picks to go get him. It makes sense if you think Travis Hunter is truly going to be the two-way star that he was in college, that people think he can be. If he's going to play both sides of the ball, you basically give up draft assets for 2 players in one. Yeah. So that can work, right? It's obviously flashy. We like that. The bigger story that is overlooked because of this, they hired Liam Cohen to be their head coach, the offensive coordinator from Tampa Bay. That one replaced Dave Canales after he got hired to be the head coach of the Carolina Panthers. And the question was, are they going to be able to maintain this offensive efficiency they had under Canales after you lost him, when people kind of thought he was a Baker whisperer that really revived his career? Liam Cohen came in and did everything better than Canales ever did. He was a fantastic offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
The run.
Can't deny, if I were a Jacksonville fan, I would like the hiring of Liam Cohen. I did an interview with my buddy Hacker, who does radio there in Jacksonville, massive Jaguars fan. They're excited about Liam Cohen, and I can't fault them for that, because I think, that's kind of what the league is. You want young offensive minds. And Liam Cohen fits that bill. They've got to figure out how to win with Trevor Lawrence right now, because he's on his big contract that they signed him to, I think, last offseason. You can't argue that's, on paper, a solid hire.
So much better, so much more versatile than Canales has ever had. He is a real offensive mind, I think. TBD, if that translates to being a head coach. That's always a question mark for these young offensive coordinators. But you have a real offensive mind here to hopefully save Trevor Lawrence and his not disappointing career, I think is a fair phrasing. He's not hopeless, but disappointing. You have that. Now you might have one of the best offensive weapons duos in the NFL at this age between Brian.
This is a big year for Trevor Lawrence, because he's been in the league now for 6 years? You're kind of, I'm all about being patient with young quarterbacks, but you are kind of reaching a point where it's like, okay, man, come on now. We got to get it going. You're on the big contract. It's time. I think, they've got to be aggressive, and that's why really I don't have a problem with them. It's a huge risk to give up all those picks to get Travis Hunter, but I get why you do it, because you got to do something right now. You've got to figure out how to win right now. But with Trevor, it's all right, man, this is it. We need you to figure it out now if you're Jacksonville.
Thomas Jr. and Travis Hunter. You also get Tutton in the 4th round to get him a running back. You lose Evan Ingram, but you sign De'Ami Brown to round out the wide receiver room.
I forgot they got De'Ami Brown.
You sign Patrick McCarry from the Ravens. Basically, what I'm saying is you give a lot of opportunity for Trevor Lawrence to really prove it this year.
God damn. I've been waiting for him to do something over the last few years.
Everybody has.
As a casual, bro.
To me, all that matters for this organization is Trevor Lawrence the guy right now? You're not trying to win a Super Bowl this year. You're trying to find forward momentum and show that you have your quarterback. And you gave.
I love the Antonio Gates jersey, by the way.
Okay.
I'm going to be nice.
Okay.
I think that for all the offensive reasons that you said, cool. I would have liked to see them be a little bit more aggressive on the defensive side of the ball, which is in part, which is why, that's what I'm saying. That's why you go get Travis Hunter. They had according to DVOA metrics, which basically it measures efficiency based on opponent and situation and stuff like that.
Okay.
They had the 2nd worst overall defensive DVOA and the worst passing DVOA in the league. They're Swiss cheese.
The Jaguars were bad. They were really bad last year.
Elite Travis Hunter, that's cool. I think a lot of their I'm going to give them a B-, really kind of an incomplete, because it all depends on how good is Travis Hunter.
Yeah.
If he comes out and he is all pro, he plays both sides of the ball and he's great, or if he just plays one side of the ball and it's fine, cool. You made a good move. If not, then you overpaid for a guy in Travis Hunter.
You give a lot. There's a lot riding. Like to give
you
up
run
your
that
first-round
risk
pick
with
for the next year.
every
Like,
draft pick, but
there's a lot
especially when
riding
you
on
give
that.
up that
We
much.
can go in between things. I feel pretty strongly about A just because I think I'm not expecting Rome to be built in a day. I'm not expecting them to be a good defense, and I think how can you not love the infrastructure in place now for Trevor Lawrence? That to me is warranting an A. But if you think the defensive side holds you back, we'll put him right in the middle. We'll go this like B plus range.
Okay.
That's okay.
But man, I'm
I
excited.
would go. I would lean
truly
more
believe what Liam Cohen
offensive
did
for
last year,
them, just
that he
because you
is
got
one
to
of the better
figure
play
out with
callers in the
Trevor.
NFL. And there's almost like obviously quarterback is the most important part of your team. Everything flows through him. You need to find your guy. Second most important thing, debatably, play callers. And to have an elite play caller is like such a lifeline for a young quarterback. Like it makes a gigantic difference.
We gave the Bengals an
Yeah.
F.
To have that plus potentially a top flight wide receiver duo, I moved.
Fair.
Okay.
From an offseason perspective, not from
Yeah.
a winning division perspective.
Yeah.
You just want to see growth. You just want to see
Yeah.
growth at the end of the day.
And
And over the last few years,
and
it seems
put
like
him-
they've been pitiful.
Exactly. I'm just putting guys in position, so I'm okay with that.
Speaking of lack of growth,
Oh my
Colts. What are we grading the Colts? They lose right guard Will Fries in free agency. They lose edge Adeyingbo. I probably pronounced that horribly wrong. They lost center Ryan Kelly, who's obviously on the
Tough.
back
I
end of his
didn't
prime,
realize
put
they
it nicely.
lost.
And they draft Tyler Warren in the first round.
I like
They
that
signed
pick for them.
Trevarius Ward from the 49ers. They signed safety Cam Bynum from the Vikings. They signed Daniel Jones from the Vikings, who might be their starting quarterback this year. I think they're kind of the same team they were last year.
I'm going C plus.
I
I
could
also could
see
see-
worse.
Yeah, I think like you addressed. They needed a tight end,
Yeah,
and
they
they
did.
went out and got one. They needed help in the secondary. They got that, and your quarterback is either not going to be there next year, or if he is going to play this year, I have very, very little hope that he's going to make it throughout 17 games.
Healthy one.
Health wise, yeah. Well, even let's just being benched like that might.
There's
that might
multiple.
Thank you. Thank you. Stop making it all about the health. I don't want to see anybody get hurt. So let's not make it about the health. Even when he's healthy, like why? What is this narrative that when he's healthy, he's good? When?
Question marks around
Yeah.
Anthony Richardson. And yeah, I think their offseason is stagnant. See, like you said, they're a team that their offseason does not define this next year. It's purely what happens on the field for Anthony Richardson, like you said.
Yeah.
Their infrastructure is not bad. They have what is probably the biggest sleeping giant wide receiver room in the NFL just because they haven't had the quarterback play to let it shine. You know, every NFL nerd will tell
Then
you.
how do you
Adam
even
Nye
know
Mitchell
that they
is
have-
waiting to get a quarterback that can get him the ball, elite route runner. Everybody loves Josh Downs, fantasy football darling. Tyler Warren is one of the most unique players in the draft in a long time. Just do it all. Like everyone calls him Taysom Hill on steroids type guy. If you can find the right quarterback and the right play calling system to get the most of that, they have a lot of talent on that ball. I didn't even mention one of the best running backs in the NFL and Jonathan Taylor and a perfectly fine offensive line. I think if we can figure out the quarterback situation, we can change the outlook
It's
of
a
this
big
team.
if.
But it's
looking
such a
good,
question
bro.
mark.
It's not looking good, bro.
If they had a stable quarterback situation, in my mind, how do they net out against their division specifically?
If
I'm not
if
gonna leave.
Anthony Richardson was like a solid quarterback, they could contend for their division.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
Like
easily.
if he was a top 18 quarterback in the league,
Yeah.
they could go on, they could win the AFC South. Because even though that the Texans won it last year and they've won it,
Here's the thing. I don't even disagree with that because the division's not good. It's not a good division. So yeah, theoretically, if they had a good quarterback, they could contend for the division. But here's the thing. You could say that about any team. Oh man, if the Titans had a good quarterback, they could contend for the division. If the Browns had a good quarterback, they could contend for the division. If the Arizona Cardinals had a good quarterback, they could contend. You could say that about anybody. It's all about the quarterback
the
position.
last 2 years, they were not inspiring last season. And we could talk about them next. Like their offseason is, you want to talk about giving fans hope. They did, honestly, the complete opposite. I'm giving the Texans an F for their offseason.
Wow.
Okay, I wrote C. Tell me why
Wow.
it's F. That F feels extreme.
I think no.
Giving
outside
the
of Caleb
Texans
Williams,
an
nobody
F.
was sacked more than CJ Stroud.
Yeah.
And I think that going and trading away Tunsil is
Stupid.
interesting.
That's a good debate. It's a good debate.
Reworking the offensive line. It's okay if you're bringing in new guys. I'm not sure if the talent is still going to net out to where it's going
Yeah, I agree.
to be
I
an
agree.
overall upgrade.
Yeah.
F is I'm giving F because the hope is very, very low. I do think that they did make a good decision firing Bobby Slowick, bringing in a new OC, because a lot of
Thank God the Titans didn't hire Bobby Slowick. You remember when we all wanted him to hire him and now he got fired?
their problems last year could be linked back to their play calling, to Slowick, and him, putting them in less than optimal situations.
Two high safeties give him hell.
But I'm not moved. I'm not.
Isn't it crazy?
I'm not excited.
Isn't it crazy how many offensive coordinators are once thought to be really good just got put in a body bag this year off this too high safety shit? Like,
Facts.
Yeah,
it's crazy. And obviously,
2 years ago when CJ Stroud, came when he was
in his
rookie
year, yeah.
And Bobby Slowick and Ben Johnson were the two guys. So they were like, oh, they're for sure going to get jobs. And then they both stayed in Detroit and Houston, respectively. He should have left. He should have got that money when he could.
I'll go D. I think I understand getting rid of Laramie Tunsil at his age, at the inflection point you're at with this locker room and the lack of culture fit. We'll say that. Mm-hmm. The fact that he was one of the more penalized offensive linemen in the league. He is their best lineman, but did contribute to their issues in some regards. I think it's not crazy to move off him. It's crazy, on the other hand, to have the worst offensive line in the conference when you have CJ Stroud. So, both things are true. Value-wise, it makes sense to get that asset and try to play the long game. But you can't play the long game in the NFL. Every year you have to win or your job's on the line. Yeah. Especially when you have a quarterback like CJ Stroud, you need to protect.
That's what I say to all the people that are like, oh, if the Titans only win 2 or 3 games again, it'll be fine. Well, it won't be fine for Brian Callahan because he'll get fired if that's the case.
So both things are true. So not a good move overall. I like the wide receivers they drafted. I like the combination of getting Higgins and Noel and keeping them together. If Ursary can be a starting tackle for them one day in round 2, that's obviously a step in the right direction. I don't hate their draft as much as I obviously am not a fan of the Laramie Tunsil thing. Yeah. I like some elements of what they did. So I feel like C- is fair.
Yeah.
But the simple fact you're going into the season with that terrible defensive line, I think D's fine.
Side question. When it comes to their wide receiver room, do you think they're going to miss Stephon Diggs at all?
No.
Well, yes and no.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think
he did so little for them.
Adding the guys that they did was very, very necessary because there was a point last year where just all of their receivers got hurt. And so just to be able to come back, and even now, Tank Dell is still, out. So to be able to add those guys and have some depth behind Nico Collins, and especially if Nico is there for a majority of the year, then no, I don't think they're going to miss Stephon Diggs. But Stephon was a good player last year. So to ask these...
This is not Christian Kirk to basically replace Stephon Diggs in the short term as a veteran.
Right. And I don't think that's
replacement level wide receiver in the NFL, I think, at best. And
very much so.
I like Jaden Higgins. I think a lot of people probably have the wrong idea of Jaden Higgins as a prospect. People see this big body and think he's this go win a go ball X wide receiver. He's not. He's like a big slot. I like that compliment playing off of Nico, who is that go ball X receiver, one of the best receivers
Talk
in the
about
NFL.
the Titans,
I like having
baby.
a big slot next to him.
It's like you're telling me all this, and I'm like, how can you even have any type of be super optimistic about this team when they don't have that baseline level of offensive linemen?
Yeah. The weapons are good enough, but the protection is just it all falls apart.
That could be their Achilles heel.
Offensive coordinator. A lot of times when you have a unit like a line that underperforms, you bring in a new OC, you bring in a new offensive line coach, they can get the most out of these guys and shock you. So if you tell me there's a world in which they have the 19th best offensive line in the NFL, and they have the 14th best EPA per dropback in the NFL, I think then maybe this is just changes because their defense is going to be absolutely dominant like it has been. You just got to show me. And I don't feel like they showed me that I should be optimistic.
Okay.
I think what the Texans have will be good enough for them to win the division, but I think they'll end up right back where they always are in the playoffs, which is one and done at best.
Yikes. But again, I'm very open to being wrong about the Texans. They could if that switches and they have competent protection. I'm a big fan of the revamped offensive
D
weapons.
could turn into B is what it sounds like.
Yeah, very quickly because that defense is obviously
that's really the case for anybody.
Highest floor possible with that.
Okay.
Staying in the division, Titans.
B+. I think this is one of the most. One of the more straightforward things on this list. You drafted a quarterback first overall, and you got the best quarterback prospect in the draft. Everything else depends on that. You were able to do that. You made a couple changes on the offensive line, right? Got him a little bit of protection.
I'm still nervous about that.
You got him a lot of protection. You got Kevin Zeitler from the Lions, who's
I like that part.
Can do stuff.
Just below elite at this advanced age. At one point was one of the best guards in the NFL. That's obviously a great move. You win the Dan Moore sweepstakes, which was an actual bidding war for a guy.
Was it really? I don't remember a Dan Moore sweepstakes. I don't remember anybody competing.
Guy who, again, like we mentioned with the Steelers, isn't great, but a lot of people feel will continue to develop and get good. If that is going to be your franchise tackle, that's a good place to start.
A lot of money spent on a guy who could get good.
I don't want to say great. Getting two good offensive linemen.
I don't even know if
you
you
get your quarterback. Nice.
Whatever.
Tyler Lockett, I feel like still has something to give as a complementary wide receiver. That helps. He's not going to be Tyler Lockett of old.
That's what it is.
Sure, but like Calvin Ridley is, I think, underrated still. Having Lockett as a complementary guy in that room moves me a little bit. I especially if you lost Westbrook Akine. I'm glad you got somebody there, a body there.
Yeah.
Listen, you get your quarterback, you give him a little bit to work with. That's a B.
B+ for me. Yeah, I'm cool with that.
And shout out. Let's move over to a similar situation with another young.
I mean, that's all you can really. We talk about the Titans trading for this player or that player, or trying to go out and get this guy or that guy. The objective this offseason has been very clear. We're drafting Cam Ward first overall, and we want to put him in as good of a position as we can without breaking the bank. We want to stay within the realm of reality while also getting as good of a team around Cam Ward as we can so that he can have a shot to do some good stuff his rookie year. That's what this is. It's not flashy. It's not trying to conquer the world or anything, because we saw that last offseason. Rand Carthon, I think, tried to conquer the world. He tried to sign everybody and make this team a zero to hero overnight. When in reality, what's best when you have a young quarterback, the Titans had a young quarterback in Will Levis, now it shifts to Cam Ward. You want to put him in as good of a position as you can. You don't want him going out there with terrible protection and no good weapons at all, but you also can't break the bank and just bring in everybody assuming. You got to give it time. So I think what the Titans have done this offseason, while not flashy, it is the most effective thing they can do. Do most people even remember that the Titans signed Tyler Lockett or Van Jefferson? Probably not, but those are veteran guys who can hopefully be reliable targets. Does anybody know the name Chimere Dike or Alec Iomenor? Probably not, but those are guys that, particularly with Iomenor, that I'm very excited about, who I think could come in and be effective weapons. Do people even remember Calvin Ridley's in the league half the time? No, but he's going to be far and away the number one wide receiver on the team, and I think he and Cam Ward have already developed quite the connection just in the little bit of offseason we've had. But even outside of that, the offensive line, yeah, I think they overpaid for Dan Moore, but, they're trying to do everything they can to give Cam Ward as good of protection as they can. And sometimes you got to do what you got to do. I get what they've done, and I agree with these guys and what they said. Listen, sometimes it's not going to be flashy. It's not going to be like a Madden franchise where you just do all this crazy stuff. Sometimes you just make boring, basic moves to get the best team you can get without going crazy. And that's what the Titans have done. It still should be Houston's division for right now, even though I do think Houston got worse. I think Jacksonville probably will be a little better than they've been. I think Indianapolis, I don't care at all about them. So, Tennessee, if Cam Ward is really good, maybe they'll be in a position to sneak some wins that nobody thought they could get. Let me know what you think. Tighten up. Bye.